welcome to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast. Life and the choices we make, the choices other people make. This podcast explores all things as they relate to dating and romantic relationships. Why we ignore, or choose to ignore, or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, narcissistic behavior, deception, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so we can better navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show or have been with me from the beginning, hold on tight for the Anonymous Andrew experience. Greetings and welcome to the Anonymous Andrew Podcast, Life and the Choices We Make. So you might notice it's a weekend if you're listening to this when I drop it. And normally it's a weekend rant. And I did a weekend rant. I came home yesterday from work and I was in a really fucked up place. Let's just put it that way. And I came right to the microphone and I just dumped. And I ripped and I went off. And then I went to bed. And then I woke up. And then I listened to what I recorded last night. And I said, oh my God, no. No. You guys might remember that I've said some things in the past that have come back to bite me in the ass. And boy, I said some things last night that I know will not just bite me in the ass, but will take a chunk out and leave me buttless. So I decided against the weekend rant. And I just said, you know what? There's a gentleman by the name of Joshua Jones. And we did a recording a little while back, and he's been patiently waiting to be aired. So we're going to put Joshua up this weekend. And I apologize to Joshua for couple of things. Number one, the long intro. Number two, the quality of the audio. As you guys know, I've been dealing with Riverside and poor quality audio for weeks now. And this episode is one of them. So working very diligently with Riverside and some filters and AI, we managed to put together somewhat sort of an episode that is listenable. I don't think there's another word for that. Anyway, it starts off a little rough, but it gets better. So, up next, my interview with Joshua Jones, and he has a podcast called the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. It's a pretty cool concept, and just hang in there, folks. The audio gets better. Greetings and welcome to another episode of Anonymous Andrew Podcast. And today I have with me Joshua Jones. Good evening, Joshua, and how are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for having me on tonight.
It is my pleasure. I'd like to tell the audience why I have you on. Joshua, let me tell everybody what Joshua his credentials. Joshua Jones is also a podcaster. His podcast is called the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. He's also a dating coach. And he also, so from the podcast, I guess you founded a community called the Not So Bad Community or the Not So Bad Network. Tell us about that.
So, as you said, I am the host of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. We started back in 2020, and we've been going strong for about 2.5, 3 years. But from there, I've just had people reach out to me saying that I was relatable and that thank you for saying what needs to be said, or I wasn't really ready to open up. And I started taking all this advice that I was getting from people like, can we work together? And I started coaching myself. So I turned the podcast into a bigger organization, a network, so to speak. So we help you kind of achieve your dating goals, in the sense that I feel like everybody's on a journey, and sometimes you just need a little pit stop.
And that's where I come in, and that's where you come in, because I think I'm at that pit stop right now. So, not to bore the audience, they know my story. I've been single for about 14 months now. I think this past year has been my pit stop. I had to pull over, pit stop like a NASCAR, right? You had to pull over.
Right.
I need the tires changed. I need the oil changed. I need change altogether. So
100%.
yeah. So all right. So tell me, for example, what happens in that pit stop?
So everybody's different. A little more about me. I was like, I work in healthcare, and one thing we always find ourselves saying is everybody's body is different. The same goes for your mentality and your heart. They all heal and experience things at a different rate. So each client has a different need for me. We have a few workshops. Some are just tailored towards the physical. Maybe you aren't really dressing the best, or you don't feel comfortable in your skin. So we have programs to help you not only find your style, but maybe also help you with just interacting or greeting new women or men, whatever you're into. And then we have one that's a really intrinsic facing, where we spend most of the time doing journaling and looking inside to seeing why did my last relationship fail, and how can I learn from this and not only heal but take myself to the next level where I'm not making the same mistakes over and over again.
That's why you're here, because that's kind of exactly where I'm at. And I when I read your profile, I kind of read into something. I said, I got to have this guy on because he sounds like, I always say this to my guests. When I have a guest on and they seem to have the concept or the answers or the guidance that I needed 4 years ago, I always say, where were you 4 years ago when I needed you? But here you are today. So, all right. So tell us, I guess, a little bit. So you took the podcasting and you turned it into a network. Do the people that listen actually, are they your clients or?
So that's a great question. A lot of people, they are really apprehensive about finding a new doctor or trying something new. They're like, if I'm going to pay money for this, I want to make sure I'm going to the right person. It's a good fit. So, and I'm a firm believer. I don't like to take money if I'm not for you. So the easiest way that I tell people who potentially want to work with me to figure out if I'm even something in their right vein, I was like, take a listen to the podcast. They're your free trial. It's your 30-day free trial introduction into the Not So Bad Network right there. And some people, they do come over and I do work with them one-on-one, or some couples, we do 2-on-1. But and some people, they're like, you know what? Just you covering whatever topic I'm on an episode was enough to give me the right push to either ask out this person I've been looking, or maybe start reading and educating myself, exploring my sexuality, my identity. So it's a little bit of both, to answer that question. And that's all I'm here for. I was like, I'm not here to tell you that your way is the wrong way. All I'm trying to do is just help you to add some more tools to that tool belt so that you can take that step yourself. Because really, it doesn't matter how much or how many sessions you book with me or any therapist or other coach. You're the one who has to hop in that driver's seat and steer your way through to your destination.
Let me ask you this, because I'll tell you where I'm at, and maybe you can kind of give us an example of how you would advise a client.
Okay.
I'm 60 years old. When I was growing up, before I got married or when I got married, and even after I got married, we're talking the 80s and 90s, there were no dating apps. You met people at bars, at events, parties, at work, whatever. And for the majority of my life, that's how I met women, and I never had a problem meeting women. I was one of those lucky guys that I guess I was. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but let's just say I never had a problem because, and I can say that because I just, as I told you earlier, I went from relationship to relationship to relationship. So I always had a woman around my arm. It wasn't the right woman, but there was a woman on my arm.
Listen, we've all been there.
Here we are now in the 2000s, right? And in around 2005, 2008, I think eHarmony came on the scene, Match came on the scene. But even then, they were only on the website. They weren't on smartphones. And then 2012, 13, 14 is when the smartphones started coming out, and then you could download those dating apps. So for the past 10 years, I have been using those dating apps, and I've been dating women from those apps. And I met my last girlfriend through a dating app, through eHarmony. And but in all of those 10 years and in the past year, I've probably been on 12 to 15 different dating apps. And most of the major ones, Bumble, Hinge,
Right.
eHarmony, Our Time, you name them, I was on one of
You
them.
probably on it.
Now, it's been 14 months. I dabbled over the past year, but I really wasn't ready yet. I was still processing and grieving and healing from the last relationship. But over the past month or two, I've had that itch, like I'm healed, and I want to get back out there. And I'm finding it, and I'd be curious to see what your clientele and your audience is finding. The dating apps have become just overwhelmed.
They're oversaturated, and they've lost their initial plot, so to speak. Originally, they were great tools, or they were intended to be good tools to help you meet somebody, connect, and then leave to start a relationship. Now, that's not where they are.
No. They've either become a hookup or a hookup tool. You'll either find the romance scammers or the catfishers or all of this. So
Right.
I'm not telling you anything new. So I've all but given up on the dating apps because not only have I not been able to find somebody that's sustainable, this past let's just say the last 4 or 5 months, I've gone on a few dates, but
Right.
there's just nothing that it's intriguing me. So I'm thinking about maybe going back to the old-fashioned IRL. Let's meet somebody in the real world.
And I am not going to discourage you from that. I 100% agree that that would be a great step. Now, I'm not saying that dating apps are the worst thing and that they don't work. You just have to be intentional with your dating, and you have to be honest with yourself, like what are you looking for? Because if you're just looking to hook up, if that's where you are in that phase, that's fine. It's not a bad place. But if you're actually looking for connection, I'm not saying it's not out there. There are apps like Hinge, Koyamore, that really do take the time to flesh out a personality. You get to know a person. Now, here's where a lot of people use the apps improperly. They take too long for exchanges. We are so caught up in this society in this day and age where everything's filtered and we have to put on a character disguise. I was like, no, if you are genuine, most people can feel that. And your people who are meant for you will see that and they'll respond. They'll gravitate towards you. And then you can maybe match with somebody. The key is what I always tell my clients and what I do myself when I was on there. I'm not waiting days upon days to either start messaging, and I don't message for a week at a time. I was like, I probably match with somebody. Within 2 days, I have an actual number. That way we can put this down. We're doing phone calls. We're doing FaceTimes. I'm actually making plans to see that person. And
Okay.
Once you get off there, then that's where the game really starts. Not game. I hate saying that dating is a game,
But
but that's where you have to start really
yep.
checking in. Yep.
Okay. And so I've done that because as I mentioned before, I went on a date 2 weeks ago. The woman lives in the next town over. By the way, I found, you probably know this, but Facebook has a dating
Oh
section,
yes.
and it's free. I have found more success on Facebook's dating app, meaning I'm getting more interaction with women. Every single day, I got another woman or two that like me or I'm conversing with, and it's free, which is something that boggles my mind. I must have paid $1,000 for all these other dating apps, and
No, 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 no.
the most productive one is FaceTime, and it blows my mind because it's just. By the way,
Yeah.
you mentioned Koya More. I had John Petsky on here. I know John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's great. I'm super excited for the direction that app is going in
yeah,
and
me too.
that the whole space that it sets up and it
Yeah,
allows.
I think it's a
Uh,
great app.
yep. And I was talking to John as well, and this is something that I think that I brought up during that episode is that hey, nobody thinks about the people who make the apps. So if you think about any functional business, the goal is to keep you coming back.
Correct.
So when you're on the apps, you also have to be cognizant of that why would they're not always trying to set you up with somebody who's supposed to be your soulmate. Because if you find your soulmate, you're getting off the app.
You're
You're
gone.
not paying for super likes or whatever the premium package is anymore. So you're not the center, you're not the focus of that business. And that's okay. But like I said, you have to know how to play the game. You have to know how to navigate the space. Um, some of my relationships with the most longevity did come from apps. Um, some of the healthiest people that I've been with, I've also met on the apps. Like I said, the key is they're not doing the footwork. You have to make sure you're putting out the right filters if you're going to use the apps, so to speak. Making sure because they do play little games. So you get a bunch of matches, and sometimes you're like, well, I'm not attracted to these people, or just reading their bios, we don't have a lot in common. Sometimes you have to go in and actually reset your preferences or their algorithm so that you start to find people that you find attractive and B are also on the same journey you're on. So if you are on an app and you're not really finding quality, not because there's quantity out there. If you keep going, you'll match with somebody.
Correct.
If you are looking for quality, if you're not finding anybody you're really connecting with, maybe every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I would say like, hey, let's go in there, do a lot of left swipes, make sure you're adjusting your mileage, what you're looking for, and all that stuff. Because then the algorithm's like, okay, what I'm giving them, they're not liking, they might leave. Let me find a different type of person to match them with.
I I want to follow that up with two questions or thoughts. Number one, I had heard a friend of mine had taken some sort of course. I'm getting a cold, so excuse me. Some course where they tell you that the algorithms, if you don't change, I think you just said this, if you don't change your profile every once in a while, it just kind of pushes it down.
Right.
And so you got to go in there and recalculate it or recalibrate it, I guess is the right word. And
Correct,
that'll
yeah.
bring in a new. The second thing was, I'm finding it on every app that, and this is a deal breaker for me. I don't want to travel 40 miles, 60 miles, or another state to date. And yet I'm being presented with people I'm right outside New York City. So
Okay.
I'm getting New Jersey, Connecticut, even Rhode Island and Pennsylvania. And it's
I'm the same way, and I'm really big. At least when I use them, about using the proximity filter. I was like, no, this is a definite for me. This is something
yeah,
hard because, like you said, I don't want to have to travel an hour to meet you.
right.
Now, if we're traveling an hour to do an activity, like a show or a hike somewhere.
But
If you're in a bigger town, I could see that. But just to meet you in a day-to-day setting,
yeah,
that I don't want to do that.
but even let's say we talk for a week, we FaceTime for a week, and we think we have a chemistry, and yeah, let's go on that hike or let's go rock climbing or whatever. Until you meet that person face to face and see their body language and the way their love languages and all that,
Right.
you may not want to ever see that person again. So you just drove an hour and a half there, an hour and a half back, and spent 6 hours with that person, all, in my opinion, for nothing because you didn't jive. And
There are a couple things I'm going to interject really quickly.
Sure.
The first thing is, I say this all the time on the show, perspective is everything. Anytime you think something is cumbersome or laborious, like you're investing a lot of time and energy and this is work, you're not really going to enjoy it. You're already putting yourself in a mindset that this is going to be transactional. I need to achieve X, Y, and Z in order for this to be a success. That's not true. That's not what a date is. And I feel like so many people are finding dating to be a job now because there's so much access. We're sifting through so many people on the internet, if that's the way you're finding love. And it shouldn't be. Dating should be something that's natural and feels comfortable to you.
And fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're not doing that, or I was like, why would you even put yourself in a situation where you're going to do something that doesn't sound fun? Also, I tell people this. I was like, as inconvenient as it may be, first date, especially if you have to travel like that, let's not go together, because that in itself is a date. You can't present your best self while you're driving, while one of you guys is driving, and the other person's being a passenger, because you're focused on the road, not getting lost, making sure they're comfortable.
Right.
No, I was like, the whole purpose of a first date is to present your best self, get to know the person, show them who you are, find out some of their interests, and see how much connection and overlap that you share. If you're already spending 2 or 3 hours talking in the car, or like they've heard what you like musically, you've probably heard what they like, or if you listen to a podcast, what are you really actually going to do once you get out and you can move and you start doing the activity? You've done everything. Yeah. And then you have a whole ride back and you're like, well, I need to say something, because once again, nobody wants to sit in silence.
No.
So I was like, you're already setting yourself up for failure right there. I know it's traditional and it is romantic, the gesture of going to somebody's house, picking them up and taking them to this date. And I don't think that should go away. I'm just saying not on the first date.
No.
Because, yeah.
Which is why if the app allows me, the distance is a deal breaker for me. I just don't want anybody outside. The last girlfriend lived, I think it was maybe 10 miles away, but the drive was really 40 minutes on a whatever, which is acceptable. She was local. It was in my area. But if I have to, I'm on the other side of New York City. If I have to go through New York City into New Jersey, pay anywhere from $35 to $50 in tolls. Forget the gas. To me, it's like you just said. It's like a job. It's just, and I'm not going to enjoy all the way there. I'm going to be thinking about all the way. So I avoid the long distance ones. That's for me. It might,
which is smart. Yeah. If you live in a smaller town or a town with less traffic, which is starting to become a rarity, then that may work for you. And I try to ignore mileage. Well, not ignore it. I relate to it as in time. So I was like, I want somebody who's maybe 15 miles away, because I know in Nashville traffic, that 15 miles could take 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Or I was like, you know what? We also have to take turns. If you make it past the first date, you have to start thinking, okay, if I plan an activity that's close to them on the first date, maybe the second date, if I'm planning something or they're planning something, it's closer to me. That way you're alternating the travel time and you don't feel like, once again, I'm going on this trip. It's a big to do. Right. We meet somewhere that's in the middle. Or just I've gone somewhere that's completely out of the woodwork. So you just have to get creative in those situations.
Yeah. But that's where I draw the line, because I know if I go drive that hour or whatever, and I do get along with the person and we do want to pursue another date, then this may sound negative or whatever. Then I'm setting myself up for failure, because I know that when let's say it develops into a relationship, then in order to see my girlfriend, I got to drive an hour for example, I had a couple girlfriends ago. She lived like literally 5 minutes away. I could come home from work. In the beginning of the relationship, I come home from work, change, and run over to her house and have dinner, and then ultimately I ended up keeping some clothes there and staying over there.
Right.
That's what everybody's different. I get that. So, people might be interested in traveling to another state or meeting. Maybe they're tired of what's around locally. I get that.
So let me hop on where you're going, because this is a really big thing that I preach to my friends and my clients alike. I don't believe in oversaturating anything, especially a young relationship, a new connection. I don't believe that you should be seeing your person, your partner every day. I don't even think you guys, at certain junctures, I don't think you should even be talking every day. Because right now we live in a world of access. Everybody's always available. Everything's within a reach. When you give somebody too much access to you, it lends to either you losing your identity, them losing theirs, or you just burn out too quickly.
Yeah.
And everybody knows the best fire takes time. You got to build it. It's a slow burn. So in situations like that, I say 2 to 3 times max is how often I'll probably see somebody.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't want to paint a picture that I was over there every day, but it was conveniently, if I texted her and say, hey, are you free tonight? Can I come over? But it was a hop, skip, and a jump. I could just jump in my car and I was there in 5 minutes. So right. I didn't mean to say that we were, not to mention that if you're dating somebody and you are in a relationship, you need your own space. You need your own personal time anyway. So which we can now segue into something else. You run a community and a podcast talking about the Bachelor Pad. My apartment was decorated by my last girlfriend. She came down here and she said, oh no, those curtains have to go. Oh no, that bathroom has to. And she literally, in the kitchen, and remodeled my apartment. I had no problem with that, because if a woman wants to come in and bring her touch, okay, but she's not here anymore. So I slowly over the last year had to dismantle the apartment, because not only did it remind me of her everywhere I looked, but it just wasn't what I wanted anymore. So now I have my best. I literally live in, I wouldn't call it a man cave, but it is tailored to my needs.
Your needs and your interests, yeah.
When I start dating, and let's say over the next, I don't know, 3 months or so, I may or may not bring a woman back over. I now have to pay attention to what's in my surroundings here, because it's literally a bachelor pad. And
so let me flip that for you. Embrace that. I like to tell my younger guys that there's nothing wrong with having a bachelor pad. If anything, do it up. Do it to the best of your ability. You have to take it and make it something positive. Now, there are times that if it's a service that they want, that I realize this, because I used to have 2-3 dates come home with me a week. At any point in time, there are always not a revolving door, but a healthy flow of people in and out of my room who weren't even romantic interests, but they were still women or people who I respected and I wanted to present a good face to. So I think that I just redefined what I called a bachelor pad. I went and I took time when I bought new furniture. I made sure that we have a matching color scheme. Now, some things that like women like to come in and do and spruce things up, I'm a big fan of, because that's your target audience right there. Yeah. You need to know what they look for and what they like to keep in there, and find a balance between, is my place still masculine? And is it appealing to the opposite gender, the people I'm trying to attract?
Yeah.
So finding that balance is something that's unique to everybody because, like I said, some people may be really into comic books and have their whole DC,
Yeah.
Marvel,
I
Kindred,
know.
D&D aesthetic, which is really nice. But then you need to find maybe more rustic tones that will
Yeah.
match that aesthetic, but seem like, oh, a man lives here, not a little boy. I'm not in my brother's room.
Right.
I'm in my boyfriend's room.
Or it could be a guy who's heavily into a sports team, like I don't know,
100%.
the Jets or the Dolphins or something, and everything is Dolphins. As a matter of fact, my son is lives down in Miami. He's a Dolphins fan, and his whole place is it's Dolphins. Um, but no, and because of my age, I think I'm not 20, 30, 40, where when I went to college, there was a dorm looking room. Like well, back then I wasn't single, but the point is that my place does not look like it's got a masculine look to it, but it's
Right.
not. Uh, it's not a sports cave. That's what I said. It's not a man cave. To
Right.
me, a man cave is a beer sign on the wall with a 50-inch screen and a PlayStation and one couch and yada. I'm
Fully
thankfully,
furnished.
yeah.
Dwelling.
I grew up with three sisters, and I've had women all my life, and I've learned how to master. I think feng shui. I think is what they call it. I know what matches what
In
matches.
some areas, 100%. Yeah.
So, all right. I want to ask you a couple of questions that you actually put on your profile. So,
Okay.
let's start with because we talked about meeting people in the real world, and I'd like to know how I can do that. Now, this is gonna for the audience may sound boring or getting old, but I'm sober, so I don't go to bars, I don't go to nightclubs, I don't go to wherever there's a lot of alcohol. How do you so somewhere on your profile you talk about attracting people to you. How does one like myself attract people to me in the real
Well,
world? Forget the apps.
100%. If we're talking in real life interactions, the best place to meet people is the place that you like to be. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, like I want to go out to a bar or a club. That's where I meet people. I want to maybe at a park, or they think that people are notoriously at these places and that they'll run into somebody and they'll find the connection they're looking for,
Right.
which is the incorrect ideology. If you're going somewhere just to meet people and it's not a place that you visit routinely that you enjoy going to, if you're going to a park but you hate like nature, you're gonna find somebody who likes nature, and they're not going to be your person. And so
No.
you may hit it off, may have a date or two, a brief connection, but it's not going to lead to anything serious. Go to places like there are a lot of places if you're a D&D guy or gal where you can do that in public. Go to those venues, and then you'll find somebody that you already have a common interest with, so you don't have to worry about are we gonna get in? Like, are we gonna get along? Are they gonna like my friends?
Okay.
Think weird? No, because they're doing the same activities. They're doing the same events that you're doing. So you just have to find places that, whether it's sober bars are a really big thing, or
Oh, right.
yeah.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
And I know we said we wanted to move away from an app, but there are a couple apps I'm just going to mention, and they're not dating apps though. So I'm on an app called Nudge, and what they do is they give you weekly or monthly activity ideas or date nights if you're already in a relationship, where you can go and meet people or have intimate or one of a kind experiences, and they curate it towards you. So if you are once again having an idea of places, so you're not going to the same two or three places every week or every day, and you just want to try something different. For me, I like concerts or music shows, live music.
Okay.
And so they send me little intimate venues. And so I actually met somebody at one who I was like, hey, is the seat taken? And we sat together the whole show, and we both were just kind of vibing, and we started talking between sets, and then we went out for coffee like a few days later. And I was like, even though I'm not a coffee drinker, I got a tea, and that became a conversation piece of coffee and tea.
Yeah, I see where
like,
you're going.
right? That's what I'm saying. But I was like, but the reason this relationship worked out so well, and it didn't seem like work, and I was excited about it, is I knew who the person was, and I found a common interest. I know that we like the same genre of music, so sometimes she would send me playlists and I would send her some of my playlists or songs I liked. You have to find activities that, like I said, are in your routine and that you enjoy, and then find other people, a community that also supports these activities, because those are the people you're gonna end up liking the most.
Right. There's
That
you mentioned Nudge, and I have never heard of that. I'll check that out. But there's another community online called Stitcher. Have you ever heard of Stitcher?
I have, and I use Stitcher. I'm not gonna say I wasn't the hugest fan of it, but I try anything for about 2 or 3 days. Um, if I can't really get the hang of it, or if it doesn't have a feel that is
Yeah.
organic and natural to me,
I,
I'm like, that's okay. I just don't
I
use it. And
that's
Stitcher
what
is one of those apps for me.
that's what happened to me. I joined it. I talked to a few people, and then they put a limit on how many you can talk to because they wanted you to join, and it was, I don't know, $10 a month or something. And at that point, I was already paying, $600 for other apps, and,
Yeah.
and I just felt that it was and a lot of times you either have to pay for the whole year. I don't like when they do that. When they
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
Yeah, so I didn't want to commit to that, and I'm glad I didn't because I haven't been on Stitcher in about 3 months. So okay, couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Um, First and last steps to a healthy relationship.
So I need everybody to get really turn the volume up, put your headphones on. If you're somewhere loud, pay attention, because this is a super crucial one. I don't know one person who hasn't missed this major key, so to speak, for all you DJ Khaled fans out there. It's one word: communication. Every relationship breathes or dies off of communication.
Communication. I agree.
And it's also the biggest reason why they die. It's because there was a miscommunication somewhere, whether it's you couldn't
Correct.
communicate your needs or your desires clearly, or what your partner needed may not have been communicated to you in a way that you were really processing and understanding. Because if you really think about just how human conversation and dialogue works, we want conversations to succeed. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
I want you to say something. I want to understand it. I want to give my feedback to it. So what I've noticed just over the years, and even in my own relationships, going back and I'm friends with all my exes. So going back and talking to them now, I'd be like, why didn't we work out? I was like, you were an amazing friend. We have so much in common. I enjoy you as a person. Why didn't we work? Well, you weren't. It came out to be I didn't understand what they were asking of me most of the times, or when I didn't know that I didn't have the vocabulary also to be in a healthy relationship at that time. I didn't know what boundaries were. Now that I can communicate what my boundaries are,
Thank you.
or what expectations that I have, what standards, I'm in a whole different class of relationship. And that's, like I said, that's been the biggest key to how they've gone.
I couldn't agree more. My last relationship, her first language was not English, so well, I know the communication you're talking about is actually having a conversation or sitting down and talking about your needs.
But no, that's part of it too,
if you can't, she spoke English very well, but there were many times that I said something that was a colloquial phrase in America, and she took it the wrong way, and the fight lasted a week.
because you didn't understand how that could be interpreted in her culture, and vice versa. And that's, like I said, that's still part of that communication piece I'm talking about. No, a lot of people think that things are one dimensional, and they're not. They exist both on this X axis, the Y axis, like Z. So when you say something, it has a literal meaning, it has a cultural meaning, and then there's some obscure meaning that people perceive it as.
Yeah.
So I was like, you really have to take your time sometimes, because we go on autopilot sometimes, or we think we're comfortable with a person, and then we use that colloquialism, and we're like, well, what's the deal? I was like, this is common where I'm from. So I can see how that could happen, especially with somebody who's from a different country and a different language.
That was a very big challenge. I had to overcome a lot of the cultures that because when she came here, she was 25, and when I met her, she was 50, and so she had two different cultures, but she was sheltered when she got here. She was married quickly, and so she really hadn't been able to go out and explore.
Yeah.
So she didn't understand a lot of what I was bringing into the relationship, and it got me in a lot of trouble. So, let's see. Well, I think that's it with the questions. Quickly, tell us that there's a little phrase on your profile about coming from I may not be quoting this correctly, but coming from a dumpster fire into you're smiling. Yeah. Explain what that's all about.
So our over the years, our tagline has evolved and changed. And currently, I love the one that we have because I think it exudes who I am as a person and my audience. So we say, we are your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a raging dumpster fire and a functioning adult.
Okay.
Because life lives in duality. As much as we present ourselves as put together, or we know what we want, we know what we're doing, there are also times we're a train wreck and we're just burning brightly. Like, people cannot take our eyes off of us because we're a mess, and they're going down the highway. But like I said, their eyes are stuck on us because they're like, what is this person doing over here? Whether it's our dating life, our families, our work life, there are just some aspects where we just don't have it together. And that's okay. You just have to find balance between being that wild, uncontrollable, one-of-a-kind dumpster fire and an adult who can have healthy, responsible relationships.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I saw your profile and I saw that dumpster fire, because let's just say, before I got sober, there was 25 or 30 years that I was a dumpster fire. I was a raging alcoholic. I was just out there living life with no responsibility. I wasn't being an adult, fiscally, financially, emotionally, mentally, yada, yada, yada. And so that's what caught my eye about having you come on here, because I can relate to that. Today, now that I'm more mature, I put the alcohol down, and now I'm trying to be a real adult, a true adult, and find that my new phrase is the next Mrs. Anonymous Andrew. So,
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the key. Like I said, and everybody wants to rush. Take your time, because I was like, it doesn't matter, like, if you've been on your journey to find the one for 30 years or if you've been on it for 2 weeks. When it's ready for you, when it's your season, it's your season.
I've come to terms with the fact that while I'll stay on a dating app or two, I can't force. I have to I'm a big believer in the universe. The universe has my back. I have a higher power, all that. I have to let nature, and I'm using that very vaguely, my higher power in the universe bring naturally, organically to the next, because I've been forcing each woman into my life. I've been chasing them, running after them, grabbing them, pinning them down, saying, okay, we're together. And it's just, again, not sustainable. It didn't work. It blew up in my face. And then I went out and repeated it all over again.
It's like that metaphor I used earlier. You got to take your foot off the gas and pull into this pit stop. If your foot's still on the gas while you're in your pit stop, you're not really taking the time or doing the work that you need to make sure your vehicle is operating at its best before you hit the road again. So, like I said, sometimes just take your foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey.
That's what I'm doing right now. And I came to a realization last week. I went on this date, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. It was a meet and greet, and like almost 3 or 4 days went by after that. And I completely forgot, because between this podcast, my day job, and I have other activities. I play tennis. I have grandchildren. Right. I 3 days or 4 days went by, and I said, "Oh shit! I didn't text so and so just to say hello. Would you like the phone call? And then let's go on a second." So bottom line is that I don't even know if I have time to date, because I'm so filled with my day. Like when I get off this call with you, I have like an hour and a half of work to do, and then I'm gonna go to bed. And and then tomorrow is same thing. So, Joshua, any parting thoughts you would like to leave us with, and then tell us where we can find you online?
Oh, of course. So I'll end this like the way I end my show. I just want everybody to remember to just keep being beautiful to each other, and just remember to take your time, because you never know what you're passing up when we're always on the go. So just keep being beautiful, take your time, and what's meant for you will find you.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at JJ_no_chaser. That's JJ no chaser, pretty much just with 2 underscores. You can find us on Twitter, or X as it's called now. At The Not So Bad. Facebook, The Not So Bad. And coming up here in the next couple weeks will be the podcast will start airing on YouTube, and you can just find us there with new content every week. We upload once a week. And so just come on over if you feel like you're ready to take the first step to the rest of your life.
Is your podcast currently on like Apple and Spotify right now, or
you can listen to the show? It's streaming on all platforms, wherever you can think to find it. Trust me, it's there, no matter how obscure.
Okay.
Yes,
but you're moving it over to YouTube, or you'll be on there as well.
We're expanding to YouTube as well.
Okay.
Who doesn't want to see this beautiful face at least once a week? That's what I tell people.
Okay. Being a heterosexual male, I'll just say he's a good-looking man, but I'll leave it at that. Okay, Joshua, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll have you back again. I will definitely check out the Not So Bad bachelorpad.com is the website that'll be up in January, I think you said. And I'll put all the rest of the information in our show notes.
All righty. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Joshua. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, so I am not going to repeat my issues with Riverside, but as you can hear, this time my audio was screwed up. The last couple of episodes of some other guests, it was their audio that was too low, and I'm just done with Riverside. Until they can figure out what the problem is, I think I'm just going to go with another software. So, in the meantime, I would like to thank Joshua so much for joining me. It's a really cool podcast. Give it a listen. All his information will be in the show notes. And I apologize to my audience. This isn't an issue with me not knowing what I'm doing. I've had Riverside now for, 4 or 5 months. It's just the last month or two that the audio recordings have been just horrible, and they just can't seem to figure it out. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna trudge along and keep doing what I'm doing, but I'll switch to a different software until we can figure it out. In the meantime, horrible to even ask for a review at this point. If you like the concept of this show and the guests that I'm bringing you, and you can ignore the quality of the audio, I would love for you to go down and leave a review. I feel stupid even asking for that. Let's put it this way. Just subscribe, follow, recommend to a friend. And if you are in a situationship and that you're looking to get engaged or commit into a relationship, have you ignored or chosen to ignore or missed the red flags? I'm just saying, but that's what happened to me. And now I have a podcast because I didn't pay attention to the red flags. Until next time, Anonymous Andrew. Ciao.